Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the O'Reilly's GM PowerTorque GM 8656. This is a take on a ratcheting open-end wrench. And unlike the Harbor Freight half-inch breaker bars, where it's just too much to handle, and once you get a closer look at it, you kind of have buyer's remorse. On something like this, which was much cheaper, it was, still kind of expensive. I think I paid $12. I found a coupon. I feel a little better about this item. There's been a lot of different attempts at the ratcheting open-end wrench. Probably Nipex makes one of the better ones because of the way it actuates directly in the wheel. And so I think they have a patent. So there's all these other designs to try to get around those various patents. And I made a video a long time ago about unique and specialty open-end wrenches. And so this kind of goes along with that collection, or it does. So I kind of justify it for that reason, because these are the type of things that are on the shelf for a couple years and then they end up disappearing forever because nobody really buys them. This design does not, like I said, does not work as well as the Nipex. The biggest issue between this and another type of ratcheting open-end wrench that is also PowerTorque, such as this one right here, the GM 4778, is the nature of this one is the handle actually just integrates. There's a little nub on the handle. It integrates right into the jaw, as well as having little chamfers. It makes it very easy to operate those on the bolt. This is a kind of an interesting design. They have a little lockout, so it won't do the ratcheting action, and you can just adjust it manually. But it has a kind of a couple different issues, which makes it very hard to use. They didn't put little chamfers on the edges of the jaws. And secondly, how it ratchets, and let me show you that. Well, first, there's this wheel will actually is spring-loaded and can squeeze back and forth. But it kind of has a locking action, and how that works is kind of strange. This handle does not connect to the wheel. It connects to a little pin, which locks the center pin, which actually has a little step. That's what keeps the wheel on it. So that when the handle moves, it's actually just pulling out a pin. And then that allows the whole wheel, and you can see that the pin that it rides in springs back. There can be issues with corrosion and grit getting in there, which will cause it not to ratchet properly. And that's kind of why it's not one that's going to be go-to, as well as this little lockout switch not having a detent. But one of the issues is if you're using it in the normal mode with it locked out, because of that little spring action, when you get the pretty tight, usually you go tight and then back off a little bit so you can use the open-end wrench and then pull it off. The issue here is that when you pull it off, there's still a little bit of spring tension or gap there. And so when you go to put it back on, the jaws are actually technically too small, and it actually is quite a bit of effort to try to get it back onto the fastener. As opposed to this one, which is super easy, just the nature of the way the handle is directly connected to the jaw and the compact head. And the chamfers, this thing is just super easy to get on fasteners. You can just basically push this on in any position and then start ratcheting with it, and it works just great. Part of the reason is the harder you press on the handle, the tighter it is on the jaw. Really works great. The problem with this one, especially in the besides what I just mentioned, is that when you're ratcheting, it kind of has a propensity to want to get caught up on the edges. It was pretty sticky when I started out. It's working pretty well right here in the video, but it'll kind of get caught up like this, where it's actually just on the edges. It seems to want to promote itself or get itself in these situations where you're promoted to round out the fastener, because all the handle is doing is releasing that pin, and then that center screw is actually allowing the jaw to move to act as the ratchet mechanism. But it doesn't have any other additional force, so it's kind of easy to get it on the corner of the jaws, and it always has a little bit of play in there. The big difference on this one is because it's tighter and the nature of the way it works, it sometimes will get like that, but most times when you get it onto the jaws, it's extremely tight like this, and then the harder you press, the tighter it gets. This thing really seems like it's going to end up rounding bolts. And when it pops off of bolts, it's going to be extremely difficult to get it back on. So it's more of a collector's item for me, but I figured I'd do a little review on it and maybe save somebody some hassle. This one does kind of look neat, but just the way it's engineered and designed, it just doesn't really work very well in practice. So unless you're kind of a tool collector, it's probably maybe something you might not want to pick up, although it is pretty cheap for a ratcheting wrench that has quite a few parts in it. And it is an interesting, unique design, and these are the type of things which just come and go, and you never really know about them. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.